19mm socket, take off all 5 of your lug nuts and then remove the wheel. 32mm socket, remove the axle nut. And make sure it pushes through the hub. If it doesn't, grab a hammer. Because we're replacing it, I can hammer right on it and, well, persuade it. That's broken free now. Let's move along. Use a T55 Torx bit to hold the bolt side for the pinch bolt on the knuckle, and then use an 18mm to remove the nut. The reason I don't like to use the impact on the torque side is because the torque is obviously more fragile than the regular socket. Okay, for me the bolt broke free. Sometimes it doesn't and it's stuck in there. In that case you could spray some rust penetrant all over and then just work it out with a little hammer. Just make sure you don't damage it. Now let's separate the ball joint from the knuckle. I'm going to grab a pry bar and gently pry in here. Be careful of the boot. This also sometimes gets stuck, in which case you could use a rubber mallet. Right now I'm stuck in here, but it did break free, so that's a good sign. There we go, that's separated. I was prying down at the same time. Move the knuckle to the side. Watch out for your ball joint boot, don't damage it. Now push the axle through. Pull the knuckle straight out. It helps if you turn the steering wheel. That gives you a little bit more play in the tie rod. Not play, but swing. Take the axle out. Now I'm going to take a pry bar, go right in between the transmission and the axle, and give it a little pry. There we go, pops right out. Grab onto your axle, finish sliding it out of the transmission, and there you have it. At this point it would be a great time to inspect and potentially replace your seal if you had a leak. Put in the new axle. To line it up with the splines, you might have to twist it around a little bit. Now I'm going to grab a rubber mallet and just hammer right on the end of it. It's going to push the axle straight in. All right, that's bottomed out. Before I put the axle into the hub, I like to put a little bit of anti-seize on the splines. That way the axle doesn't seize inside the bearing next time it needs to be removed. Just a thin layer will go a long way. Now pull the knuckle away, grab the axle, slide it into the knuckle. Now let's turn the steering wheel back to where it was. Line up the axle with the splines and push it through. Perfect. Pry down on the control arm, bring the knuckle to line up with the ball joint, and get the ball joint in. All right, grab a rubber mallet and tap the control arm up into place. You want to tap on the control arm, not on the ball joint itself. Make sure it's fully seated. Slide the bolt through. If your bolt doesn't go through, that means it's not fully seated. It's either too far out or too far in. Let's snug it up. Torque this to 61 foot-pounds. Let's get the axle nut on. You'll see me run it down with my impact, but that's just to run it down faster. I'm not actually tightening with this. I'm going to come back and torque it as soon as it's bottomed out. That's bottomed out. Let's torque it to 59 foot-pounds and then an additional 90 degrees. I'm going to put my pry bar through the lug studs. That will prevent the hub from spinning as I tighten this. That's 59 foot-pounds, and 90 degrees is basically a quarter of a turn. We'll start over here. That's as close as it's going to get to a quarter of a turn. That's tight. Let's get the wheel back on. Start on all 5 of your lug nuts, snug them up, and torque them to 100 foot-pounds.